Well, good afternoon, guys. Thank you for having me. Carol gave a good introduction of who I am, so I guess I will proceed right into taxpayer-funded animal experimentation, the problem that we're working on with the White Coat Waste Project. Well, let's start with a pop quiz. Since we work on taxpayer-funded animal experimentation, let me ask you guys a question. Who do you think is the biggest financial supporter of animal experimentation in the United States? A, B, or C? Is it the big cosmetic companies? Is it you and me? Or the big pharmaceutical companies?
B.
Smart audience. The answer is it's us, taxpayers. It's a big government program, taxpayer-funded animal experimentation. Right now, our tax dollars are funding it in ways that would shock and sicken you. Here's the problem. We know the floor of how much is being spent. We don't know the ceiling of how much is being spent. In other words, the NIH admits to about 40 cents on the dollar of their budget, 40%. That's $12 billion, billion with a B, being spent every year on taxpayer-funded animal experimentation. That doesn't include the other federal departments, USDA, EPA, Pentagon spending. We don't know. We don't know the ceiling. I've heard estimates as high as 18 to 20 billion tax dollars being spent. Don't you think that could be spent in a lot better ways? In animal experimentation, vivisection? Problem is, we don't know the ceiling. We know the floor, what they admit to. And that doesn't include in any way, shape, or form private sector spending. Cosmetic companies, product testing, pharmaceutical testing. We're just talking about taxpayer-funded animal experimentation. Just the stuff on the dole, just the stuff that you and I are forced to pay for, whether we like it or not. So let's take a look at some of the big government animal experiments that we were forced to pay for. Everybody remember the stimulus in 2009, 2010, the economic stimulus that was going to save us? What if I told you that they spent about $150,000 to study how cocaine affects chronically addicted monkeys at Wake Forest University? That's your money. Is that how you want it spent? What did we learn from it? There you have it. You learned that cocaine's bad for you. Again, is this how you want your money spent? I give you Exhibit B. Anybody here heard of Primate Products? Primate Products is a big government animal importer and dealer and trapper. And they wasted another $1.3 million tax dollars through the same stimulus payout program to trap monkeys, bring them in. That's where your money's going. That's what happens when you pay taxes. It's a big government taxpayer-funded problem. I give you Exhibit C. Professor George Billman at Ohio State University for over 20 years spent millions of tax dollars forcing beagles, dogs, to run on treadmills till they have heart attacks. This is one bad dude. And if that weren't enough, I give you Exhibit D. The Oregon National Primate Research Center, you paying for it, $9.5 million tax dollars over the last few years. To do what? To feed junk food to what we call chunky monkeys. To fatten them up, study obesity, put them in small, as you can see, wire mesh cages. That's not my photo, that's from the New York Times. Kill them, dissect their brains, only to conclude that diet and exercise might be good for you. Is this how you want your money spent? And we're in Minnesota, so let's talk about Minnesota. Well, you see I'm wearing a pin here that says no monkey junkies, or junkie monkeys. Well, that's what they breed. That's what we do here in Minnesota. The University of Minnesota, in the last decade alone, spent $3.6 million tax dollars doing what? Testing heroin, crystal meth, angel dust, cocaine, crack, and other recreational street drugs on not just monkeys, but menstruating monkeys. Professor Marilyn Carroll at the University of Minnesota has been doing this for over 30 years. In fact, what if I told you, when she first got on the big government dole, when she first started taking your tax dollars, you know what the #1 album in America was? It was Michael Jackson's Thrill It. You know what the #1 movie in America was when she first got on the gravy train? Return of the Jedi. That's a long time to be taking federal payouts. I mean, when I can't pay my visa bill, I don't get a bailout from the government. Do you? They do.
Good place to take this to is people that are hungry and working class.
Can you let me finish this off?
Clearly there are better things we could be wasting our money on.
Reach the masses.
You know? $12 billion in taxpayer-funded animal experiments alone, minimum, probably higher, 18 to 20 probably. So we're starting to see a pattern here. How the heck could this happen? Well, there's an old joke in the vivisection community. How many monkeys does it take to convince vivisectors that baby animals are frightened when ripped away from their mothers? The answer? As many monkeys as the government will buy for them. Translation, as many monkeys as you're going to buy for them. These people aren't funding themselves, you're funding them. Dr. Ray Greek, anybody here read Ray Greek? If you don't, you need to be. He put it best. Quote, the people who scream the loudest that we have to do animal experimentation are the people whose mortgages are being paid because of experiments in animals. Simply put, the vivisectors are addicted to our tax dollars. They refuse to respect our money. They really need to be made. They're not going to do it themselves. You start to see a pattern here. Tax dollars, tax dollars, tax dollars, spending, 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 vivisect, vivisect, vivisect. So, the pattern we noticed with the White Coat Waste Project was that this tax pattern, this addiction to our tax dollars, we talk about junkie monkeys, well, we think they're the ones who are addicted. They're addicted to our tax dollars, and with addiction comes weakness. That's the vulnerability and the opportunity we see. So what do? We have to defund them. That's the strategy. It's a defunding strategy. Because when the tax dollars are gone, they're gone. Dr. Erwin Gross, a cancer researcher and anti-vivisectionist, once said, quote, money talks if the flow of taxpayer dollars that supports the foolish or cruel or dangerous practices of official science is cut off. These practices will stop. We need to defund them. If they can be funded, they can be defunded. And when the tax dollars are gone, they're gone. So how do we do it? So we started this organization called the White Coat Waste Project not that long ago, based in Washington, but we're a national organization. And we do it very differently. We have a very different approach. How so? We're pro-animal, pro-taxpayer. We're a taxpayer watchdog group. We're focused exclusively on government-funded animal cruelty. We do not go after cosmetic companies. We don't work on the problems of pharmaceutical companies or private sector industry. We work on government-sponsored animal cruelty. So if it's not funded by tax dollars, it's not part of our mission. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking a lot about strategy and message development in my presentation. So we'll be talking a lot about message development and how you can create your own message. But basically, if you want to know what we stand for, it's very simple. Taxpayer-funded vivisection forces you to support something you don't like, you don't need, and doesn't work. And as a taxpayer watchdog organization, we can save lives and money by cutting the government spending that directly funds animal abuse. Traditionally, animal advocates and animal activist organizations traditionally ask for more money to protect animals. We take the opposite approach. We say, if you're funding cruelty, let's cut it off. And when you cut it out in root and branch, you can save lives and money in one fell swoop. How do we do it? Well, the White Coat campaign approaches the problem to clean up the government's waste through a three-step campaign-style approach. My background is in campaigns. I'm from Washington. I'm originally from New Jersey. Nobody's originally from Washington, D.C., but my background is in Washington, D.C. doing campaigns. So we do it through a three-step approach, approaching this as a nonprofit organization. Step one, we identify the waste. We work on following the money. It all leads back to tax dollars. And therefore, we can do public records analysis, opposition research. And in following the money, the next step, expose the waste. Advertising in paid media, earned media and press, public education and outreach, engaging think tanks, and beltway influentials. And our third step, finally, is to defund the waste. We do this through old-fashioned grassroots activation, coalition building. With 501c4, we can do lobbying